it doesn't happen just out of nowhere. It just happens from strong brands doing things right. Then that's gonna help you really ignite that and foster a community building, because community, it's all about really creating a unique place for these customers, for these people to come together with one common cause or purpose. Whatever that is, that's what you have to create for your brand.
How do you optimize your customer's journey, drive demand, reduce churn rate, increase retention, and generate growth? Are some of the questions marketers continuously ask.
Welcome to the Customer XP Crew Weekly Podcast, where we discuss marketing strategies, tactics, ideas, experiences, invite guests and experts to help you with your marketing growth by being customer-centric. And now to this episode.
Hello, Juan, and to all of our listeners, welcome back to another episode of the Customer XP Crew, your weekly podcast about everything customer-centric. Today, we'll discuss with Juan, our marketing director expert, about community building. And this is very interesting because we did a poll on our social media, and there was a phrase that stood out from the rest, and it was, people look for deeper connections, not just transactions. What do you think about that one?
I think that's just embedded in human nature, Sebastian, and welcome to everybody. And thanks for listening, first of all. Human nature just really correlates with the fact that people want to connect. And by us being social beings and human beings, we tend to connect in different kind of ways. And social channels really become a spark to that and really ignite that. What is hindering, just from a human aspect, not from a marketing aspect, is we're becoming closer to people who are afar, but we are becoming afar from those who are close to us. So just remember also to measure your digital channels and how you're using it, because sometimes we forget about the people that are close to us, and be your wife, your kids, your family, your girlfriend, your significant other, whatever it is. Just take care of them too, because they are also part of your social circle and your social entourage. So by all means, building communities and creating a cohesiveness and a tribe is what really stands out from brands that are really successful. If you see brands that really make it far and have that loyalty despite premium pricing or some mistakes, is because they're the loyalty of their fan base.
Yeah, and we have seen it in those examples, whereas some people say, hey, why are you such a fan of X or Y product when you can find like cheaper options or better cost quality relationship options? And it's because it's more than that, right? It's the experience, it's the community they have built around it.
Yes, I think community is just something that we have to create in order for brands to be successful or more successful. I'm not saying if you don't have a community behind it, it's not going to be successful. Don't get me wrong, it might be, but it's not as loyal or strong as other brands who have built it. It's because there's a better foundation into that, and because people are kind of embracing that relationship, and it holds tighter with that brand. So if you see, for example, Harley Davidson, it's their motorcycles are expensive, yet people buy them just because they want to go on trips with these other motorcyclists who have that personality, that spirit, and engage in activities that are just for other Harley Davidson fans and owners.
And it's more than that, right? Because it's not just the motorcycle, it's the leather clothing, it's the boots, it's like the whole aesthetic thing. It's also a very key factor because that stimulates the economy in other sectors. because like when you get the motorcycle, you want to belong to this group, but it's so much more than
Mhm.
that. So there are
Yes.
other aspects that are also covered, and I think those brands, like they realize that, and they try to jump on that wagon, and they realize like they can come together as a whole, as a community, and just skyrocket.
Yes, and what you go when you mention all those things, what I see here is you're mentioning culture, and that's what's really embedded within a community is that the company culture transcends from your product or service, it transcends to your customers. And that's one of the things that it's going to embrace the brand. It's going to hug it and make it so tight that it's really hard for people to really go away from your brand or your service or your product because they just have a deeper connection with your service or product. They like feel in love with it and they'll pretty much defend it and sometimes feel like so patriotic about your brand or anything that goes entitled to your brand. So they'll defend it with all their means and because they feel they are a part of it. And that's what I want to come and make sense of it is customers generate an ownership once you build a community around your brand.
So I think like, and this is funny because I believe that sometimes companies have created products and they are not aware of what those products are going to become, like in the meaning of what they become culturally within an audience. I think sometimes it has even surpassed way of their expectations. Like I can recall there is a very classic like old vintage company called Victrola, and they did like the original turntables for the LPs, and some years ago they did like a newer version, like just for people to come out of nostalgia or something. They weren't aware of this huge vintage music comeback that has been happening now, because now it's hot again. Like people are starting to collect the LPs because they know the music fidelity is higher, and it became like a huge community, and they weren't even aware of that. They didn't even have plans. So I think that's awesome when it happens to your company.
That's another bright insight that you mentioned is once you start niching, you're gonna find communities that are very fine-tuned to what your customer experience is and what you want to create for them. Is you want to create around your culture. And so if you go more niche and your product is very niche, then you're gonna spark that love because it's a smaller crowd. Remember, groups start really small and then they start to propagate and become larger. Obviously, you want to have a decent size, but the smaller they are, and to once they become a little bit larger, they have a stronger identity, and you have to create different if it the audience becomes really large within your community and your community it's becomes a large group, then you have to create segmentations within that community so that you keep that cohesiveness around them because there's other groups within that big group that you are now creating. So that's especially important as well.
Would you say is there such thing as community marketing, or is just like a phenomenon or a cultural aspect that happens just out of nowhere?
That's a great question. I think it doesn't happen just out of nowhere. It just happens from strong brands doing things right. So if you create a strong product or service and you somehow involve your customers as thought leaders or embrace your culture and personality around it, then that's going to help you really ignite that and foster a community building because community, it's all about really creating a unique place for these customers, for these people to come together with one common cause or purpose, whatever that is. that's what you have to create for your brand. And I can go over some of the steps that normally you go about creating a community. I say number one, it's to start with your mission. So brands forget sometimes that when they are out to create a community, they're like, hey, how do we create a community? What the hell? What's there? How do I really create a and encompass people in one space to create something? And one of the things that I see that they forget is hold it true to your brand, hold it true to your mission, to your vision. If your mission, for example, is to make, um, let's say you are a green company where you're making sustainable products, and you say make the world a greener place or a more sustainable place, then hold it to your mission. Like, how do you create a community around that? Probably you do beach cleaning outings and you create a community around that. But first, you have to start internally. So, step one, it's embrace your mission and vision and create a community around that. Create a human factor around that, usually supported by some humane connection to the outside world that really creates and encompasses something that gives back to other people, not just your brand, because it's not, and it's not a community, it's you're still doing business. And so
Yes.
make those efforts, embrace your that humane aspect that you have and that it correlates with your mission and vision. Then nurture it with content, with activities, with other stuff that really adds value to the members. And start inviting other people. Like, start with your team, then invite other people to become part of it. Give it time. People think that sparking a community, it would just build over time, and it's not going to happen like just around the clock. It's always going to happen as long as you're
Organically.
organically, and as long as time passes and you're being consistent on creating this, then it will start sparking and growing little by little, like a snowball rolling down a hill. It will start growing, 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 growing until it becomes big. Then use user generated content, like kind of foster that sorry, kind of foster that user generated content so that people see that they also can
Contribute.
participate and they can contribute and that they can be thought leaders in it, and that they can also create opportunities and communicate, and it's not just a one-way communication channel, it has to be both ways. And lastly, be responsive. I think this is one of the things that most communities don't have, and it's somebody from the brand really taking care and moderating this community and being responsive, like listening to what people are saying. Hey, you're gonna have really hardcore fans vibing on this, so listen to them, because you might have other insights that you can pull from here and your company can benefit and really create either new product features or just a better experience for the customers.
And something really valuable that I would like to add there, because I think you brought up a very important point of view, is that some companies, they are not aware of this, but you have to be genuine, especially the part when you say that you need to incorporate your vision into your brand's tone of voice and what you are communicating and conveying to people, because whether you believe it or not, people do realize, like people can tell when it's fake, when it's BS, when companies, they try to do these things just because it's on trend, because it's the right thing to do. Like, you need to avoid that 100%, because and now more than ever, people can tell, and people will tell right away
Mhm.
that you are not being genuine. And also because that honesty and transparency, it's like one of the keys to success. And
Absolutely.
another of the important factors is that because even after the pandemic passed, there are some aftermath. Some people became more isolated. So now it's the perfect opportunity precisely to do these more engaging communities, to connect or to reconnect, even to reconnect people. And it's been proven that people are appreciating this even more.
Yes, and you are absolutely correct. I mean, just to add is, it's just human nature. We want to be part of something, and that's what we all seek. Like when we are babies, we kind of embrace our mothers and really get stuck to our family and parents and our core family. Then we grow up and we start making relationships with friends, with our cousins, and people around our parents who are their friends and all that kind of stuff. And then once you go out into school, then you make little groups, and that's your little community, and you become part of also a bigger community, which is your whole student body, the whole fellowship, and that I mean the whole student body that's with you, the whole class. And you might go into fellowships or join other extracurricular activities where you make different groups. So you're always being part of something. You're always creating that connection with other people and just being part of different groups. And I'm not gonna say you're just a person that's part of a one community. You're a person of multiple communities. Then because that's just human nature. We have different interests. We have different things that really drive us, and that's what makes us join different organizations, different groups, all this kind of things. And it depends on your way of life and how you're living it. That will tend to make you go on different ways and join different communities.
And just understanding that, I think it's where the figure of the brand ambassador comes from, right? Some people, they like to be ambassadors of a brand because they have created a connection that is so solid and it's so rewarding that they become ambassadors of that brand, and they want to represent and share what the brand has done to them to the rest of the people.
Yes, I believe organically, yes. No, I mean, there are some brand ambassadors that are paid, but obviously we want the the real organic brand ambassadors because it pours out of their heart and they feel such a deep connection with the different products and services that your company offers. For them to take this kind of love and empathy and ownership of your service and product, that they feel that it's theirs, and that's why it makes them do all this kind of things. Nonetheless, there's brand ambassadors that are paid and influencers that are paid just to also, hopefully they love the product and they do it not just for the money but because it also kind of relates to them, and
Yeah.
that's
And
what
they
really
need to
matters.
share, they need to share a similar vision.
Well, that from a strategy perspective, if you're paying a brand ambassador or an influencer for something, it should align with your product
Exactly,
and
yes.
your company and your service.
Yes. You can't just hire like any influencer, that because even in that you need to niche down and segment and pick right your influencers.
Yes, you have to be very choosy of who you're gonna select to drive the message if you're going for that. But going back to community, it has to happen organically. It has to happen within a realm where people congregate because they find a purpose that they want to be part of. And like I gave you the example, if your company does sustainable clothing and you do beach cleanups and that's your way of contributing back, and you have all these people that really believe on their belief is to create a better world and cleaner place, there you're gonna have people joining you and doing this. Yes, at first you might not show up with 100 people, you might have a handful, but next time make sure you document that, you share it, and you start enticing other people with that content and create that purpose for them as well so that they can be motivated for your next outing or your next event and really start sharing. There's also tools that you can use to really foster communities because not all of them happen live. Like when we talked about Harley Davidson, where people just congregate to do these road trips, different different trips and lengths of trips. Either they go 300, 500, 1,000, or sometimes they just go for a couple miles within the city and park and hang and have some beers. That happens too. But what's most importantly is you have to congregate people for a purpose, either digitally or in live in person and physical world. So how we do this, you have different tools. If you're gonna do it digitally, you might want to do it with groups online, like LinkedIn groups, if it's very professional. If it's something more casual, you have Facebook groups. You might also do groups on, like, let's say, Slack. You might also create
Right.
a Slack group and invite people and foster a community there. What's good about Slack is that you don't have other distractions. It's just narrowly focused on your community, whereas in Facebook, they have other distractions there.
Yeah, it's more all over the place, right?
And the same with LinkedIn. So you have other distractions, other groups that are pouring down messages and they might go elsewhere. So it really depends on how you want to create your community and just give them the tools, entice them to post, to share content, and go with your brand. Like stay true to your brand. That's the most important thing to take from this episode today is stick to your brand. What's your mission, your vision, and create a purpose around it in order for you to foster a healthy community and have better customers, more loyal customers that are igniters of your brand and that really spread out that fire for so more people feel more warmth for your brand and they get that love as well.
Um, uh, we have a good question here. Maybe from a little bit of from a business perspective, what could be one more tangible advantage of building community from the perspective of, okay, because it takes an effort to do
Mhm.
all of this to create these experiences. What would you say to someone that is reluctant to create these experiences and tell, hey, this is like one particular advantage that you will get that will happen whether it's organic or not if you create a community around your business.
For somebody that's reluctant, I think one of the things I would tell them is, let's say, for example, if you went to a school and you felt like an outcast, it didn't feel fine. And if you really
Yes.
created and connected with somebody and they start giving you that love, that kind of place that you feel that you really are part of something, then you become very familiar and then you come out of that shyness of being like so rigid and really become you. So you don't have anything to lose. It's where you really embrace people. And from a business perspective, you're just creating a zone for customers to really show their true colors and show their love for what the solution you're providing or product. And you don't have anything to lose. As a matter of fact, you have more to gain than anything. There's the appreciation, the community, the loyalty, the feedback, the insights. You just have so much to gain here, and to lose, it's probably just the effort and time you're gonna put into it that's gonna make it seem like, oh, this is difficult at first, and just patience, because obviously a community is not built overnight, and it takes time.
Yes. I would personally say that a goal for any brand will be to create or to reach a similar feeling to that one we had when we were in high school, and the teacher said, okay, you can work in groups, and you immediately, like Godspeed, gave that stare to your friends because you knew, yeah, because you already knew that you belonged to that clique, and you knew that you were going to work together. That, like, that sense of excitement, that's a similar feeling that brands should approach, because that's what it feels like when you really when you get to be a part of something. And speaking from a brand
Yeah, I
experience
agree.
perspective,
I agree completely. Yes.
yeah, and also because I was just recalling, like, one of the success points of Apple when they launched the original iPod was, like, people started to gather around people who knew a lot about music and started to share music and create
Hmm.
playlists, and it just created a whole different concept. So though that's another example that would be good to highlight.
Yes, absolutely. I think that as human beings, we want to be, again, I'm saying this and I sound like a broken record, but we want to be a part of something. And if you create that part of something, you create that space to be part of something, then you are into something very big, because you're just really embracing all those customers and creating that space for them to be who they really want to be with your brand, with your product. And that's gonna create and reap rewards for your company.
Awesome.
All right, I think that's a wrap for today, and thank you for staying tuned. We hope to see you next time on the next episode. And hopefully you took away some of those learnings and you can revise on something and you start fostering your own community.
Yes, thanks to all of our listeners. Thanks to Juan again. Pleasure to have you. And if you like this, please like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for next week. Remember, this is the Customer XP Crew, your weekly podcast about everything customer centric. We hope to see you next week. Bye bye.
Bye.